Íslands þúsund ár, Íslands þúsund ár, eitt eilífur sól, titrandi dag, sem tilbýður Guð sinn og
Hello and welcome to the Reykjavik Newscast. I'm Poppy Askham, one of the interns at the Reykjavik Grapevine, and you join us on a very important day. It's National Independence Day for Iceland. So it's 17th of June and we are celebrating Iceland's independence from 1944, which was when independence was declared from Denmark. So Iceland used to be a Danish colony from around 1380, and before that it was a Norwegian colony. And so every day on the 17th of June we celebrate the independence of Iceland. So what usually happens is we have a big ceremony, there is the national anthem sung, there are lots of speeches. So today we had Katrin Jakobsdóttir give a speech, and there's also the Lady of the Mountain. So Lady of the Mountain is a ceremonial role. Every year it's a different famous woman from Reykjavik or Iceland, and she reads a poem, especially for the occasion. So a couple of years back in 2018 it was Go Go Star, which was very different, one of Iceland's most loved drag queens, but normally it's an actress. And then after the ceremony in the square outside the Althingi, we have the procession, which is led by the scouts holding lots and lots of flags, and they process from the square outside the Althingi all the way to Suðurgata cemetery, to the grave of Jón Sigurðsson, who was one of the leaders of the Icelandic independence movement, and a wreath is put on his grave, and that is the end of the official ceremony. The rest of the day, most people spend just in downtown Reykjavik. There'll be lots of marching bands, lots of hot dogs to eat, flags everywhere. It's just a really chill day. And yeah, one of the biggest holidays in Iceland. Everyone gets the day off. Unless you're a scout or a politician or a journalist. And yeah, it's one of the best holidays here. So as you can see, there are lots and lots of flags. One of the things that is going on this year is there is a flag counting competition. So you can count how many flags you can see and send it to 17 Juni, which is Juni, at Reykjavik.is, and there are certain goodies that you can get as part of the competition. Obviously this year is a little bit different for the National Day because of the coronavirus situation. So as it stands at the minute, we have a ban on 500 people gatherings. So things are going to be a little more subdued. The government has asked people to spend this day at home with their family and friends rather than having very big gatherings. But obviously most of the events are still happening, such as this one. So yeah, it's a little more subdued here, but since we only have 6 active cases of coronavirus at the minute, it's not that different from other years. So that's good. So the reason I'm here instead of Vala Gretchen this episode of the newscast is because we're actually going to be talking a little bit about the airport screenings. So I was one of the 927 people who flew in on Monday into Grapevine airport and got tested. for the coronavirus. So it's a PCR test. And just to give you a little bit of the backstory, just in case you hadn't been catching up with all our coverage. So from Monday, 15th of June, there was a change to the travel restrictions for Iceland, which means basically people arriving in the airport can either quarantine for 14 days or they can do a PCR test at the airport. So at the minute, this only applies to EU, EEA, EFTA and UK nationals, or people with a residence permit for those countries, or a close relative of any one of those groups. On July 1st, that is going to change. That's the plan currently. So people outside the Schengen area, nationals from all sorts of countries, will be able to come to Iceland. So that is the situation as it stands at the minute. The results from Monday, which is the only day we've got results from the testing, were 2 people tested positive. Sorry, that's just a plane going overhead. 2 people tested positive for the coronavirus. So one was a tourist, one was an Icelander. They were both on the Copenhagen flight. And what had happened was the tourist turned out to have had coronavirus, recovered, and then you basically test positive for a couple of weeks after your infection. It can happen. So what they did is they did an antibody test to prove that he had it and he'd got the antibodies that showed he recovered, and then he didn't have to quarantine because of this. The other individual was an Icelander and they are in quarantine. So yeah, we have 6 cases. So on to a bit of advice from someone who has been through the whole process. First of all, what to do before you travel. So first of all, you're going to need a mask or some kind of a face covering. So most of the airlines are saying this is mandatory. It's mandatory when you land in Reykjavik. So there are officials stopping people who aren't wearing masks. If you can't get your hands on one of the N95 or one of the sort of respirator masks, a cloth covering will do, or just a paper surgical mask, but you will need one. Another thing you might want to bring is a pen, especially if you're going to be going to quarantine, because there is a landing form that you'll need to fill out. On my flight, no one had a pen, bit of chaos. But anyway, no one needed to quarantine, we just had to fill out forms just in case. And then also, really, really important, you're going to want to fill out a pre-registration form on the covid.is website. So this is, it's in a little orange box. When you click on the homepage, you can fill it out 72 hours before you travel. And all you have to do is put in your contact information and sign, click that you've read a health declaration, which basically says you have not had symptoms before traveling, you've not been in contact with someone who has got coronavirus, and that you understand that the police have got the power to enforce quarantine, you can be fined, all that kind of shebang. So you need to do that because it really speeds up the process at the airport. After all, the sooner you get tested, the sooner you get your results, the sooner you can enjoy your holiday. There has been problems when I went, I was one of the few people who had it, so I went through as one of the first people to get tested. But for example, on the ferry, lots of people hadn't actually pre-registered and it delayed matters quite seriously. So you definitely want to be doing that. So also, along with that, you'll need a charged phone. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you get a barcode through for the test and you will need a charged phone to be able to go through. And also so that they can contact you with your results. So what happens when you land is you go into the airport, there are black spots on the floor marking 2 meters, so it's very easy to keep the distancing. And then you'll go through passport control, and then you will be, if you're choosing to do the PCR test, you'll be ushered into a big hall with 10 brown booths and queues behind each one, and 2 medical professionals in each booth. So what will happen is you will go into the booth one at a time, you will stand against a wall, you will scan your barcode, and the nurse will get a swab. They will put it, first of all, at the back of your throat which tickles a bit, but no issue. And then they will take one from your nose, which is a whole other story. I mean, I didn't know my nose was that long. It really feels like they're trying to get to your brain. Not very pleasant. I would bring tissues for the aftermath, but that is how the test works. So afterwards, if you've done all that, you just go out, grab your bags, and you are free to go. So the flybus is running at this point, and I believe Air Connect is as well. But it's really advisable to get private. So if you can, try and get a private mode of transport to Reykjavik, because obviously you don't know if you've got the coronavirus and you need to be responsible. That's one of the really important things. It's going to take a little while for you to get your results, and it's up to you to be really responsible in that period. So if you can, try and stay in a private space, act as though you were self-isolating, and really, really important, download the Reykjavik C19 app. If you search for it, it's in the Play Store, the App Store. There's a link on the COVID.is website. And so that's really important in this period particularly, so that they can track where you've been. So it uses GPS to see who's been within a 2-meter radius for around 15 minutes and could possibly get infected. So it's really important in this period, when you don't know if you've got it, to have it pre-downloaded on your phone, ready to go. So yeah. And then what happens when you get the results? You will get them texted through to you if you test negative. So it's just a little text, says you tested negative, please can you download this app if you haven't already. So that's the Reykjavik COVID-19 app. If you test positive, you will get a phone call from the infection tracking team. They're really lovely. They will they will talk to you about what's happened, offer you possible tests. So like the Icelander, the tourists that arrived on Monday and had already had it, you might have an antibody test if you believe that's the case. And they will talk through how you're going to isolate, explain how that works. Lots of hotels are setting up ways that you can isolate in a hotel. If that's not possible, the government has said there will be free accommodation for people. We don't exactly know where that is. Before, there was a hotel, Foss Hotel Lind, which was used for this purpose. We don't know if it's going to be the same one. And the government has also said that costs incurred related to COVID-19, medical costs, apart from the PCR test, will be completely free. So in the unlikely event that you do test positive, then you'll be well looked after. So yeah, that's everything you really need to know. It's a very controversial move from the government here. There's a lot of emotions surrounding it, because we currently have 6 cases. We're tantalizingly close to having 0 cases, and no one wants to jeopardize the health of Icelanders, obviously. So, but then also we have the economy to think about, and Iceland is heavily, heavily dependent on the tourist economy. So it's a bit of a payoff here. The way you can mitigate the risks and be as responsible as possible as a tourist, because obviously if you're traveling to Iceland, you love Iceland, you love Icelanders, you don't want to pose a risk. What you really need to do is make sure that you're really responsible before you travel. If at all possible, just keep at home, isolate yourself as much as possible before traveling, and really keep an eye out for all those symptoms before traveling. Download the COVID app. Make sure you're really responsible in the period after getting tested. And yeah, keep washing your hands. And that's basically everything. We're just going to wait for the procession to catch us up a little. So yeah, we are by Suðurgata cemetery, where Jón Sigurdsson is buried, and the procession, as you can see, is just catching up with us. There will be wreaths put down on the graves, and speeches and poems, and that will be the end of the ceremony. Thank you for watching.